Hello friends, welcome to DIY is my happy place. I'm Amy and today we're going to be talking all about gnome shoes and how to make them in this fast, easy, simple way to make high-end shoes using Dollar Tree supplies. This no-sew option uses one little thing that will connect the shoes to the legs of the gnomes so that you can make your shoes in advance, and they could be any color, any shape, any size. I'm going to show you the basics of how to make a gnome shoe, and we are going to have some fun. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make gnome shoes using a technique that I came up with, and there's a lot of different styles that you can do, all with the same basic bones, so to speak. I've made a lot of different types and it's so much fun to create different things. The main thing that you need for this technique is a straw, it's a balloon yard sign straw that you can get from the Dollar Tree. And you make the shoes in advance and then you're able to just pop that, the legs are going to be made with the straws and they will just attach right on. So you don't have to do your shoes the same day as you're making your gnomes. I love to make a lot of different types of shoes in advance. I've got my cowboy boots here. I even made a little cowboy hat. I've got watermelon shoes. And there's a couple of different ways that you can form them, and I'm going to show you how to do that. There's high tops in all colors and shapes, even a pair of green ones. I wanted them to look like they were already walking, and some white and black. Really, it is so easy to make them this way. Now, these are the balloon straws that I pick up from the Dollar Tree. They have two different sizes, and you definitely want the ones that are larger or round. And the key is the little attachments that go into them. There's these little parts that hook to the balloon. I'll just set those aside. I'll probably use them for some other project, but we don't need them for this one. But these little attachments are the key to making it so that you can attach the shoes to the legs later on. And so I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So the beauty about these straws are they're strong and solid, and yet you can cut them with a piece of with scissors. So what we're going to do is we're going to first need to form a template for the soles of our shoes. And I like to use a marker so that I don't have to sit there with a little pencil and try to figure out where I'm at and just mark a spot. And I actually just use a cardboard box that's from actually the post office. That's where this box is from. Now you're going to need 4 soles for each pair of shoes, because you're going to have the sole that gets the felt glued to it, and you're going to have the sole that is put on the bottom. Now, I use duct tape, different types, different colors, depending on what type my shoes are going to be. When in doubt, I can use white or black, but I've also done all different types of colors: gold, silver, green. So we're just going to put our sole down and tape it over on both sides, and then we'll cut around it. And I always keep Dollar Tree duct tape around. Now the next thing I'm going to use is felt, and pick this up also from the Dollar Tree. And then see how I used a little ridge on the outside of my watermelon shoe? That was actually using the yard wire that's used from the garden section. But you don't need to do that. I'm going to show you another way that we can do it. It just happened to work well for my watermelon ones. Okay, so today I'm going to be showing how to make a shoe using red felt. Now, the Dollar Tree has these little plastic cups, and I actually picked these cups up from Amazon, and then I use a toilet paper roll, just cut it into 3 spots, and depending on how tall you want your shoe, if you want it to be a low tennis shoe or if you want it to be a high top, you could cut the toilet paper roll differently. Now we're going to take these little plastic cups, and these are the key to getting those legs so that they will be exactly where we want them. So you can do the cups going upside down or straight up, and I'll show you why you would do each kind. But basically we're going to put our toilet paper roll, our cup in the center of it, and then we'll also use an egg. Now, you don't always have to use the toilet paper roll. It just depends if you want a wider shoe. And the reason why it doesn't matter, the toilet paper roll is going to be reinforced with glue. So it doesn't have to be really strong. It just has to be able to hold a position until the glue dries. So we're going to get some Easter eggs and cut them in half because we want both shoes to have the same thing, either the tops or the bottoms, because they're different sizes. I tend to like to use the bottoms, but I certainly wouldn't waste the tops. And we're going to glue the plastic cup and the egg right down onto our sole. Now, when you're going to glue this, I would recommend putting it on top of some plastic or some silicone hot pad or something like that. So if the glue oozes off to the side, you can just kind of wipe it off. You don't need your shoes sticking to the table. But I will say you want to be very generous with your glue because this is going to help keep those shoes stable when our gnomes are standing. So you want to completely cover the bottom of the shoe with hot glue. And push that down. Then I'm going to put my toilet paper ring in and my plastic cup and hold it down and let that completely dry. And in this case, I'm going to have a wide tennis shoe, so I do want the toilet paper ring too. Now, wherever you're doing this, you want to completely let it dry, and so you can be going on to the other shoe and before you move on to the next part. Otherwise, the little plastic cup will start melting. After it's cooled on the very bottom, you can start reinforcing it with more and more glue. And like I say, the reason why we want a lot of glue is it helps to weight down the shoes so they won't tip over, and we don't want them to bend around at all. We want that gnome to be able to stand on its own. Okay, then using the tip of the hot glue gun, I'm just going to push down in the center of the plastic, and sometimes it just doesn't want to melt through. So I just cut the tips off. After I've melted it, and it'll pop up, and I can cut that part off. Once there's a little hole, then I can finish melting. And the size of the hot glue gun is the perfect size to fit where the straw is going to go down through. So we'll come back to that in just a minute. While I'm letting that cool, because I've put glue down in too. Now, a lot of glue, and I'm letting that really cool. I'm going to get my duct tape, and I'm going to make some extra ridges to go around. I guess you'd call it ridge trim. So I'm going to take a piece of duct tape and I'm just going to fold it over in a thin strip. And then I'm going to fold the other side, and then I'll cut it down the middle, and then I'll fold it again. You want it to be in thirds. And this is going to be the outer trim of the shoe. And the one thing that I've found is it's the little tiny details that really help to make it look professional and high-end. And that's what we're going for, high-end shoes for our gnomes. So we're just going to fold that over, and now that duct tape is in thirds, and it's just going to match perfectly with the sole of the shoe. Okay, now that glue has dried, and I'm going to put another dose of glue everywhere I can, down through the middle, the center of the plastic, and around the edges. You really want this to be solid, because if it has a solid foundation, your gnome won't tip over. Now, the straw does not have to be very long because we're going to be attaching the legs to it, and so it just needs to be long enough to fit through that plastic. And here's the beauty of it. It goes straight up the middle. So it will be the perfect place for the leg, and it'll hold your gnome upright. So the plastic goes in there. Again, another generous amount of glue goes in first. Really pump it in there. So now you're basically filling that cup up with glue, and that is going to be what the weight that helps to hold it in place. So we're going to put our straws straight in, and then peel it off of our plastic so that it's not sticking. And once again, let it dry, let it dry, let it dry. Okay, while that's drying, we're going to go ahead and move on to get our outer fabric. Now, felt works fantastic. I love using felt for the shoes, but you can also use different types of fabric. I've used the fabric that's from the Ladybug skirts, and from a pillow that was a fur pillow, or even from towels. I pick up tea towels from the Dollar Tree, and they make really fun decorations. A lot of them have quotes already on them that I can frame and then tie in with a skirt and make the outside of the shoes, all with one tea towel. So I absolutely love using those. They are a little bit more finicky when you're gluing them onto the shoe. But here is what it looks like once we get that felt on. So you're going to see that it's definitely worth it. There's just so many different ways you can do. Now the sides of this particular shoe, I just used some of those black strips of duct tape. Now you can see that this shoe, I had the cup going the other direction because I wanted it wide at the ankle. But if you want it narrow at the ankle, then you put your cup in upside down. Now, let me show you again the beauty of these straws. Now I picked up a silicone hot pad from the Dollar Tree, and it is fantastic. No glue will stick to it. So it's a great thing to use whenever you're gluing. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like. Our straw is going to be glued into our shoe. Then I can put this little attachment on, and then that's going to be where the leg comes down. And it is solid. It's so great. You're just going to love it. Okay, let me show you the details of how we're going to make that gnome. So again, toilet paper rolls, if you want them to be a wide shoe. I definitely sometimes don't even use the toilet paper rolls. I will just go straight from the plastic cups and the eggs. Now you just line up both of them and draw an outline. Cut those out, and you will need 4 soles for each pair of shoes. So each shoe needs at least 2 soles. On my watermelon ones, I actually lined up 4 or 5 soles together to make it so it looked like it had a bit of a heel to it. So you can be creative that way. So we're going to glue our sole, glue our lid, and once again, duct tape for the bottom sole. And just glue it down, fold it over, do it again, and then cut it out with scissors. Now, the one thing that I have found, whenever you're cutting with duct tape, the scissors tend to get a little bit sticky. So having a wet wipe or a Clorox wipe on hand to wipe the sticky away from the blades so that they will keep cutting is a little tip. Okay, now we're just going to go around the sole. And another thing is, sometimes as you're cutting through, it will look kind of like a white edge on it from where the glue is, and I'll show you what to do about that towards the end. Okay, once again, really glue down the sole, give it a generous amount of glue, and then you can put your little plastic cup and your Easter egg. Now, once you have those on, the next step is forming what size you want your fabric to go around. And as you can see, I'm just eyeballing it, and I'll trim off whatever excess I have once I get it all glued on. But the beauty is you can make a lot of shoes with one roll of felt. So it's okay to have a little extra that we can trim off on the other side. Okay, so I usually always do them 2 at a time, like do a pair at a time. So I'm cutting 1 for each shoe. And now the next thing we're going to need is some tape. You can use masking tape or packing tape, whatever kind of tape, not duct tape because that's too hard to work with, but a tape, and you're just going to go around the outer sides of the shoe. And the reason that you're doing this is just going to hold it and give it the form that you want for your shoe. So then when we put our felt on, it'll hold its position. So this is how we are forming our little gnome shoe. So you just wrap and tape and go around until it is completely covered with tape. There's no places where there's holes that are going to cave in with our felt. So that's what it's going to look like. This is going to be a little lower rise shoe. And then I always start from the back. And the reason I start from the back is I want the seam to be up the front where I know I'm going to lace it anyway. So I put glue on the very back of the heel and then find the center of my felt, and I just glue and rub around. If any starts oozing out, it's not a bad idea to have a silicone makeup applicator to use to help put the glue where it needs to glue so you don't get glue on your hands. And I highly recommend getting yourself, if you do a lot of hot gluing, getting yourself a silicone hot pad. This one is actually cut down because half of it I have under my hot glue gun. And it's the best because I don't have any glue buildup anywhere because it'll just pop right off. And the same with the silicone makeup brush. Okay, so I'm just gonna glue, and then each time I glue, I'm pushing down the glue so there's no bubbles in there. There's no ridges. I want it to flatten out. But I definitely love doing it with hot glue so that it can be almost instantaneous. I've done it with Elmer's glue and it will work, but it just takes a lot longer. You got to wait for each step for it to dry. And that's why as anyone who follows me knows, that my favorite thing is a hot glue gun. Okay, and speaking of following, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more videos and more content. I post every Wednesday, sometimes a little bit more than that, but at least every Wednesday I will post a new video of some sort of DIY. Okay, now we're just gluing and gluing, and as you can see, there's felt coming up, and I will trim all that off. I just want to make sure that every side of this has been glued down. And on the front, I kind of have, I didn't give myself a whole lot. I guess that's the back, but that's okay because I am putting another sole down. But I just wanted to make sure that it comes around the cardboard so that I'm not going to see any pieces of cardboard. So I just keep gluing and cutting. And gluing and cutting until it's completely flattened out. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. You can see that this is starting to look like a shoe. I do like to just fold the very top, like at the toes, fold it up, glue it down first, and then fold the other sides over it. So it's kind of a bit of a moccasin look. But once that's all glued down, you don't really notice where the seam is or where it isn't. Okay, now I'm gonna again put generous amount of hot glue on my sole and glue my other sole that has tape on both sides down to it. Now the reason why I wanted tape on both sides is because sometimes you can see the top and sometimes you can see the bottom a little bit. So it's just easier if you have tape on both sides, just like that. And you could match the tape according to the color of your shoe, or have the sole be a different color. In this case, I do like to use black. Now remember how I told you there was a little bit of glue edge? Again, I'm going to show you what to do about that. It's going to just completely be hidden. Now here's my 3 pieces of duct tape put together to make a little trim. Now we're just going to glue this down, and it's not a bad idea to use those silicone hot glue finger grabs that you can get from the Dollar Tree, or a silicone makeup brush, whatever, just so you're not burning your fingers. But it is 3 layers through, so as long as I don't have any hot glue oozing out, I can push right onto the tape and it doesn't burn my fingers. Okay, so if there's a little piece of your sole that's a different size than the rest, you can go ahead and trim it off now. And then this is the trick. You just take a marker the same color as your tape and color in anywhere where you're seeing white, you're seeing glue, even hot glue, you can color it. Now, I consider these no-sew moccasins, no-sew tennis shoes. But the one thing I do is I take my twine and I lace it through a needle in order to lace up my shoes. So I don't know, would that still be considered no-sew if I'm using a needle to put my laces in? I'm not using it to sew it together. I glue it together, but this is the easiest way that I've found to get the laces into the felt. So maybe I can't really call it a no-sew, but basically it's a no-sew. I'm just going to crisscross back and forth, and then tie my shoe off, and look at that, cute little tennis shoe. Now, there's one other thing that I like to do to help make it look like it's got, and then also you don't want it to fray out, so I just burn the very tips just to have them melt together so that the lace do not fray out. Now, I love these little beads. I take little beads, silver, white, gold, blue, whatever color I may want, and I glue them right on top of the laces. I take a piece of wire or a paper clip, and I use the thick super glue that you get from the Dollar Tree, and just put those on right on the parts so it looks like it has a rivet in where the laces are. Now, I've tried putting the laces through the beads, and it's just really hard because it's so tiny. And I found that if I just glued the bead right on the outside of where the rivet would be, it looks just like the laces going through. You can't tell the difference, and it's so much easier than trying to bring your laces through and get them in the right position and everything. So that's what I suggest. Get some little beads. They do have beads at the Dollar Tree. I think I picked these particular beads up at Hobby Lobby, but it is so worth having some beads in order to put your cute little embellishments. And for tennis shoes especially, it really makes it look so much better. It just adds that little bit of pop that you need in order to really look like a professional high-end gnome shoe. Isn't that great? I love it. Now, there's just no limit to what colors you're going to use. And then I get my little piece that's my attachment. I like to put a little glue down the center just to make sure that it's really solid. Glue that on. I do not have to glue on the legs. I just push it into that little spot and it will hold itself up. It's very, very great way to have shoes made in advance. Now I want to show you different types of ways that you can do the shoes. Like I said, you can have, and see how they're really filled up with glue down in there. I don't know if you can see through the plastic cup, but you can have those cups going upside down or the other way. You can have them with, but no matter how you do it, you just want to make sure you tape them up really good and really reinforce. Now I wanted a really high top tennis shoe. So in this case, I'm using 2 plastic cups per shoe. So I have one going one direction, one going the other, and it goes up a lot higher. And here's what it looks like after they're taped. So these are 3 different versions of the exact same thing, just how I put together the plastic cups. Then wrapped them with tape, and they are ready to go. This is one of the towels that I used to do a little gingham shoe, or you can use gray and white. Really, there's so many different things. I just love all the different tea towels that you can get. And with the tea towels, I wanted to just show you, you do basically the same technique here. But when you're gluing it together, it does take a little bit of extra. And when I was doing this, I went ahead and cut off the white outer edge. But I just used the part that had the checkerboard, and so that is the part that I'm going to use for the shoe. Then I just glue them on, and again I want to keep it so that the front is where the seam is, so it is where I'm going to have the lace, and I just keep gluing and flattening, and that's how you do it. Now, if you have any comments, I'd love to hear what you think. What is your favorite gnome that you've ever made or that you've ever seen? I would love to know that. And also, I want to talk a little bit about those cowboy boots back behind. Literally, those are made, the entire black part, instead of being felt, I wanted them to look more leathery. So I used duct tape on those. And I made a felt cowboy hat using duct tape, cardstock, and black felt. I am not going to be showing a tutorial about that because it was a lot harder than it looks. But here is my end result for my shoes. Look at this one, made from a puffy pillow. And there's really just so many different colors and styles that you can do. I even used adhesive diamond wrap in order to jazz up this Ladybug pair of shoes, and I am really looking forward to making a grill gnome that's out grilling and barbecuing for the 4th of July. And that is how we make our fun gnome shoes. You could do custom ones that are watermelon or lemons or the kind of Nike Swish shoes. Anything goes. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Wasn't that a blast today, making gnome shoes? I love it. And don't forget to get yourself some balloon straws. And I'll see you on the other side.